Guy in Japan.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I can relate to what Tracie was saying about the indoctrination before growing up in a strict Mormon family.
Ah.
But that's not why I called in. I wanted to ask about, I've been talking with some people about the problem of evil, and I seem to get as an answer a lot of free will argument. And I feel like maybe I don't really understand it. It seems like it's so easily answered, but I don't know. I wanted to see if you can maybe explain to me what the Christian or the theist free will answer to the problem of evil would be.
Well, here's the question. When these people that you're arguing with are asked whether or not God knows everything, including full details of the future, what is their response?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do they accept that God is completely omniscient, including future events?
Yes.
Then free will doesn't matter. If God knows everything you're going to do before you do it, and God can't be wrong, then you have no choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the problem, though. They look at it. What's happening is they respond, but you have free will, and they're usually, what they mean by that is God is not controlling your actions. But the truth is, it doesn't matter if God is not controlling your actions. If He knows everything you're going to do, something has already determined your actions, whether it's God or not. So they're probably, when they're saying you have free will, they're probably saying God is not controlling you like a robot. My response is, I'm fine accepting that if that's what you believe, that God is not controlling me, but just the fact that He, with hands off, sees everything I will do up to the day I die means that I have no choices.
And it also seems like, why is it necessary for us to have free will? Like, what is good about free will?
Well, I don't know that it's necessary. In fact, I'd challenge somebody to demonstrate it exists. I mean, it's possible, but since we can only do one thing at a time, how would anybody be able to demonstrate that they could have done something different than they did?
Yeah. I seem to get a lot of answers saying that, I don't know, somehow rationalizing that if we do have free will and that it is necessary and it's good, which just leads me to think, well, then does God have free will?
Well, because there's a lot of problems here, specifically as Tracie pointed out, with the idea of free will in a worldview that includes an omniscient being. There's also a ton of questions you can ask after the fact, like, is there free will in heaven? If so, then wouldn't you be able to sin? And you get all kinds of answers like, yes, there's free will, but you wouldn't want to sin. Well, then that wouldn't be me. Clearly, there would be something that would be dictating my behavior and limiting my free will. But to get back to what you originally asked, which was the free will response to the problem of evil, and since we didn't really address either one of them, the problem of evil is essentially an argument against the existence of God, that pretty much it's against the existence of specific gods, that says if there's a benevolent, all-knowing, all-powerful God, then that God cannot exist in conjunction with evil. Because if He's all-knowing, then He knows about the evil. If He's all-powerful, He can stop the evil. And if He's all-good, then He would stop the evil. And the kind of, not freshman, sophomoric Christian response is to say, yes, but we have free will and that's important, and so God will not overwrite your free will. Well, the problem of evil doesn't just deal with the actions of individuals, whether they have free will or not. The problem of evil addresses the entirety of the world we live in, and actually it's probably better expressed as the problem of unnecessary evil, in much the same way that fear is a good thing and pain is a good thing, and it lets you know not to keep touching the stove. The extent to which evil exists, or things that do harm exist, goes well beyond the pale. It doesn't necessarily, birth defects, that's not a function of free will. Tsunamis, that's not a function of free will. Those types of things also fit into the kind of newer argument from evil, and they cannot be responded to by free will. So if you're discussing the argument, the problem of evil, and they're coming up with free will as a response, instead of going down the rabbit hole of free will, you can start by saying free will has nothing to do with birth defects, tsunamis, cancers, etc.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand why I keep getting this answer when it seems so like inherently flawed on so many levels. Yeah.
You keep getting it because it's the one that they got from their preacher. Just like when Leanne called in to tell the story of the serial killer who kidnapped that woman, she probably got it because it's something that evidently James Dobson or the Dobson family has been kicking around here recently. And when we get calls from people, the reason we get some of the same arguments over and over again is in part because they get bandied around by apologists like, well, won't mention any names, but all the various apologists get people spun up with these arguments. And they are incredibly convincing to someone who already believes. Even when I began to have doubts about my own beliefs and everything else, I went to someone who I consider to be intelligent and wise about the ways of Christianity and said, look, I've got some atheist friends, which was true, and how would I witness to them? Because I just can't even find a way to really, any hard-hitting evidence, because it's all so personal. And his response is, well, ask him how you can possibly have any morality without God. Literally, the conversation went this quick. He said that, and I went, oh, yeah. Well, duh. Of course. Why didn't I think of it? How can all these atheists be so stupid that they haven't thought of this? That is how convincing it is, as long as you're already, you have all the preconceptions that people build their theology on. You have to force yourself to take an objective look at these issues in order to determine, okay, do they actually have any merit? I mean, that sounds really good, and it certainly bolsters my belief, but is it convincing? And unfortunately, the way most people discover it is by actually talking to some atheist, particularly somebody who's been where they were, and they bring up this argument, and the atheist points out, that's dumb. Of course you can have a morality without a religion, without a God, all you need is individual desires and a cooperative environment, and you can build from the very, very simplest basic building blocks an entire moral structure that is incredibly complex and diverse over time. It's not even hard. And I've had conversations face to face with people who will present that argument, and I will present a response, and I kid you not, it's, no, but wait a minute, you can't have a moral code without God. You have to have, no, here's why, and you explain it again, and they sit there nice and patiently and don't interrupt, and then they say, yeah, no, but you can't have a moral code without a moral authority. Okay, well, no, we're not the authority, God's the authority. It's like the conversation we had today about the Hitchens discussion, which I'll let you do rather than me.
Yeah, I mean, just real quickly, I did remember that thing that I was trying to think of earlier. It was about stripping away apologetics. People who have never been raised in indoctrination will argue apologetics, and they get to the end, and the person says, well, I don't know what to tell you, but I have faith. I feel like there's a God. And the atheist at that point who's never been indoctrinated just says, what in the world just happened? I just spent 2 weeks online arguing with this person, rebutting all these arguments, looking up scientific theories, providing information, and I get to the end of it and they say it doesn't matter that you refuted everything, I got to have faith. The reason for that is because this belief was put into them when they were 3 years old, and they built it up from that. The apologetics got layered on later as the reasons for justification for that belief that was already instilled. And like you're saying, once they hit that age where they accept it, they then are looking at the apologetics and questions about the apologetics and not necessarily questioning God. But the thing about Hitchens, which was sort of the same thing, it has to do with these pre-assumptions, and God being the main pre-assumption. It was a video I watched last night on YouTube. It was like a two-part video with I guess it's Todd Friel, I think was his name.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do this interview with Hitchens, and I told Matt I didn't even know who this was, and I was thinking, who in the world booked Christopher Hitchens with this person, because the caliber of the interview was just so not what he's usually put into. So he wanted, the person interviewing was obviously a theist and wanted to say, well, we're going to do this I'll do these 12 questions or however many questions, and we're going to have a hypothetical. What if the Christian God that you reject exists? And we're going to hypothetically say this God exists, and I'm going to give you like the doctrines, and you tell me how that would change your perspective on things. And so he presents Hitchens with all these arguments, about, well, if God made you, then don't you believe that you would be obligated then to do everything that he says? And Hitchens is like, absolutely not. And the guy goes, well, remember now, we're talking hypothetically that there really is this God, and he really is the God of the Bible. And Hitchens is like, yes, I understand, and I don't believe that that would give him, he's like, by what right would he be able to then dictate to me everything that I should do? Wouldn't that just be tyranny? And the guy is like, well, but remember, hypothetically, this is the God. And Hitchens is like, yes, I understand the hypothetical is that this God exists, and he is there. And he's just like, well, he made you. He made you. He gave you life, and he gave you this planet. He gave you all your success, and he's responsible for everything in your life. And wouldn't you be obligated then to do everything he says? And Hitchens is like, absolutely not. I would not be obligated. And he's like, but this is a hypothetical where God is real. And Hitchens is like, yes, I understand that. I'm saying that I would not feel obligated to this being under those circumstances. And all through the show, he was like going through the 10 Commandments, he was going through the resurrection and the sacrifice of Jesus for salvation, and down the line, Hitchens is like, no, I would not feel obligated by that. And no, I do not feel like I need to follow the 10 Commandments as, he's like, I follow some, like murder and stuff, but that has nothing to do with a command from God. I do that for other reasons. And the guy's like, but remember, we're going from a hypothetical that God is real. And it's just like, I understand that we're going through this hypothetical that God is real. I'm assuming that your God is real, and I'm telling you, it wouldn't matter to me what his commandments were. If his commands include that I have to grovel and worship and spend my life praising him because I'm alive, no, I'm not going to do that, and I wouldn't feel obligated to do that. And just throughout, about the 6th or 7th time, this Todd Freewill guy said, we're going from this hypothetical. I was saying to my computer, he understands. He understands. Why don't you understand that he understands? And it was just this complete disconnect in Freewill's brain where he could not grasp that somebody could understand the scenario that he's explaining and not agree with his own conclusions. It was beyond the pale for him. It was impossible for me. I don't know how Hitchens, however many times he insisted that he did get it, that yes, if this God was real, I would still say this. And Freewill his response was always to go back, like Matt is saying, and say, you don't understand what I'm saying. And it's like, no, Hitchens totally understands what you're saying. You don't understand that a person can think differently than you.
I figured out, though, how Hitchens can keep his cool far longer than me.
Oh, he's
I think
amazing.
I'm going to start having scotch on the show.
Is that what it is?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
So, anyway, did that answer your question and then some, Guy?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking my
People
call.
forgot you were even on the line.
I did too.
Thanks a lot for calling. We really appreciate it.